Thank you very much. Thank you very much for the invitation to get here. I work for the National Trust of Norway. It's an organization established in 1844, working with old buildings, working with policy making, working with house owners, carpenters, craftsmen, and stuff like that. But we also own some old houses. And working with old houses is relating to history. Whether you like it or not, there's no escaping that. You have to relate to history when you work with an old building. And I've been wondering for quite a while, why are we doing things like this? And so are you, I know. And this is in Bucharest. It's the offices of an architect organization. I don't say of course, but you can understand it. And this is in some ways a way of relating to history, or maybe it's not relating to history. So I am going to have a short talk about why is it like this. And now in Norway for the last months we have been discussing the Venice Charter from the 1964, and it's a lot of discussions about what it says. And this is the translation in English, Italian, French, German, Ukrainian, and Hindi. But my point in this talk is this is not where we ought to look if we want to find out who's in charge, or who's guilty. We're shooting the wrong piano player. People working with houses is always in some ways related to history, and I'll focus on the building on the right here. It's a church owned by the National Trust of Norway. It's Urnes State Church. It's inscribed on the World Heritage List. It was built in 1130. But what's important to notice is that this portal here was taken from an older building at the same place. It's carved in 2017. You heard about it. Was it yesterday? Yeah, and Lynn, working with me, told you about it. But the point here is, this is reused in this church, and not only for practical reasons, but also probably for symbolic reasons, because it meant something. And that's the reason why this church is on the World Heritage List. Is it's not changed too much in our time, so it's from 1070, 1130, from the 1200s, it's part from the 1600s and stuff like that, so it's a kind of continuation. And the people that worked with this church related to history. They didn't want to take a step away from it, contrast it, or override it. They just want to incorporate history in the building that they were working with. And that was quite common in Europe when the heritage movement, the modern heritage movement, was invented. In France, in England, and Germany, we related to the buildings that were there, the buildings that were standing, and also the ruins that were standing, and tried to continue history as a continuation. It was a way of thinking that history is a process that we still are part of. The same thing happened in Norway with this one, Heddal State Church, a disaster, I think. But also this church, Hopperstad State Church, the one that also my organization owns, and it was restored, and in some ways tried to keep it in touch with history, no contrast. In the late 1700s, the modern museum movement was invented. And the point of the museum movement, it started during the French Revolution, where they took historical parts, statues from Notre Dame, and took them away from the revolts and the revolutions out there, and put them in a room to save it, to keep it away from the tide of today, to keep it away from the modern things that are happening, to keep it safe, and put it like on a mantelpiece. And that's the museum as it has been for a long time. This is also Oslo, where you put old houses, you put history in a reservation, to make it possible to let the times and the world evolve by itself on the outside. So in some ways, you just remove history away from today, keep it in a safe place so we can do our modern things. And this is the modernistic way to view history. And this is the first time probably in the history of mankind that we say history is gone, history is past. As David Löwenthal says, the past is a foreign country. We can't get there. So we just don't relate to it. And that's the modernistic way of relating to history and then relating to historical buildings. This is a town plan for Paris. It's quite famous because it's a it's a prototype of a modernistic town plan. But what's not so much known is that in between these new buildings, there is parks, and inside these parks, Le Corbusier put the old buildings here and there, monuments, like in a museum, just away from the practical way of living in town. And he was quite fascinated about this idea. So this is at Skansen in Stockholm that he visited some years after he made this town plan. And his point was just let modern times run by and let's put history in another place. And that's where we, so to say, the modernist movement decided or started not to relate to history at all. So it's a kind of breach. Some years later, this Carlo Scarpa made the Castelvecchio. And here you can see just literally how he contrasts or takes the new parts of the building away from the old. You can see. Just point, okay, let's keep the new away from the old. Just let the old be where it is, and let's contrast with the new stuff that we put in, like the floors here or this one here. And I think this is good. I think it's good, but I think it was a genius. But if you put someone else doing the same thing that's not a genius, then something bad happens. And I think this is bad. Trond is laughing, that's good. This is the Norwegian architect Sverre Fehn, who just copies the same ideas and he used them at Hamar. And this is how he contrasts. Have a look at this. So you can have a glimpse at some parts of history back here, but the new things are manifesting themselves very loudly. And you must remember that Sverre Fehn, I think this is one of the reasons why this contrast and these loud contrasts are very popular in Norway, because he was teacher at the architectural school in Oslo, and he was a rock star of the Norwegian architect from the 60s and up. And that's why I think we have done this really a lot. And if you can see this quote, it's a bad translation into English, I've done it myself, but for you who read Norwegian, it's not only that you should contrast, but it's a moral obligation to contrast, and it's a moral obligation to speak very loud, so you are quite sure that everyone sees the modern parts, and then the older parts are put in the background. And I think this is one of the main reasons why we are doing this even still today, like this. And this is what happens if you remove it from a building context and out to a city plan context, like in Tromsø. Tromsø is maybe one of the most contrasting towns in Norway, and I think it's almost violent when you have a look at stuff like this. And it's interesting because for each new generation of architects working in Tromsø, they are screaming even louder for each generation. And it's more and more difficult to contrast the old when you're building something new. I think it's two important aspects. The one aspect I was talking about is how you relate to time. And the modernist way of thinking, and I'm not talking only about architects, but the modernist way of thinking, the modernist ideas are contrasting history. And the other part is that architects are considered artists, and I think that's correct. But it's also something changed with being an artist around the 1910, 1915, and the modernist way of thinking to be an artist is something quite different. And And then you also have to do expressions, artistic expressions. And then some things like this can happen because this is an old house. Move to the square in front of the Parliament building some years ago by a Norwegian artist. Maybe this is good, I'm not quite sure. But now it's not far from where it originally was, and it's preserved like it was in the museum, you see? And if something is dead heritage, this is dead heritage. It's as dead as it can get. This is also the way we are handling things now, and I think it's quite interesting that from being used as incorporated and contrasted, now we are using these parts here more as decorations than actually really history. I don't know if you know this, but it's a train station, the surviving part of a train station in Berlin, and this is the train station gates where the first Jews-centered concentration camps went through. And now they are turning it into a museum. But I don't know, this is quite typical for how we relate to history now. When I'm working with heritage, I think it's important that heritage is a living part of society, and I think we are getting there now, after a lot of years with isolating it and treating it as museums parts. And I think what you do at Nidaros is a kind of example of that, because it's living heritage and it's evolving, but it's evolving together with the history and the respect for history. And I think that's important. And you're not always keeping everything, but what you do is getting in contact with history. And I think instead of looking at the Venice Charter, you should have a look at some other documents that I think is quite important. And I think this one is maybe the most important, and that's the one used in the UNESCO to handle authenticity as a begrep. It almost was good. Yeah, you discuss authenticity and cultural context, especially cultural context. If you use that as a measurement, it's always possible to do things in other ways. And you should also look at the Faro Convention that makes it all a democratic movement and not something for the professionals only to dictate. It's important what people feel, what they want to be part of, and what they think is their heritage. So that's about it.